Welcome to the Equity Blueprint Podcast. My name is Dana Wilson, CEO and founder of CHIP, which stands for Changing How Individuals Prosper. And our goal is to help you find financial professionals who can suit your individual needs. I started this podcast to normalize a conversation around money and wealth and what that really means to our communities and just the evolution of our lives. Money isn't always the sexiest topic or fun topic to talk about, but hey, that's why you're here. To not just learn more, but really kick back, relax, and hear other people's journeys and how they've used money, how they related to generational wealth or wealth building to become their own, what I like to call financial architects of their lives. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the dope conversations that you're about to hear with people that inspire me from all across the world. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Equity Blueprint Podcast. And doing a better job of remembering what my podcast is called this time around. Although if you hadn't tuned in before, feel free to check out other episodes of the previous 2 seasons of the Included Series podcast, so you can also hear other episodes. But of course, I am super excited to bring on my next guest, who is also a Sora of mine. So it was also very important that I wore my red glasses tonight. So there's no need to obviously tell you what sorority we're in. I feel like you should already know that. So Liz, welcome. It is such a pleasure to have you on. I'm just, throw out the shade of the red and all of the things and just, point to your background and let them know what time it is.
Always.
All of that. But no, I'm super excited to have you on. Really enjoyed, connecting with you when we first met and learned about your story and all the ways that you started your company and bootstrapping and all the things. I'm excited to jump into all of that. But of course, love to just kick it off and just tell everybody, who you are, how dope you are, and what you've been working on.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, Soror. So I'm Lizz Rene. I'm based in the DC area, specifically in Capitol Heights, Maryland. I've been living here for the last 11 or so years. In my 9-to-5 work, I'm actually in the DEI space, currently doing the work hanging on by a thread in the advertising world.
We are hanging. We gonna hang on.
Hanging. But then I'm also blessed to be an entrepreneur and founder of Pull-Up Card Game. We are a brand of party games dedicated to celebrating Black experiences from college to the workplace. So when we launched in 2020, we started out with our college edition, all about Black experiences at HBCUs and PWIs. I rep the University of Georgia, Go Dogs. And so recently, ironically, given the times that we're in, we just launched our Black in the Workplace edition, which is all about the experiences of Black people in the workplace. And I'm excited to talk about my journey. That edition, ironically, I kind of came up with when I was laid off from one of my 9-to-5 positions. So yeah, lots to talk about and unpack for sure.
Oh yeah, we definitely about to get into all of that because we are all hanging in and hanging on, and they've been trying to get rid of us, but we do not go anywhere. If anyone has learned anything throughout history, you cannot get rid of us in all ways. So it's super exciting to dive into all that had you start that. But I definitely want to know, what was your earliest memory of money and how do you feel like it's evolved?
Ooh, great question. My earliest memory of money and how it's evolved, I feel like it would probably go back to my elementary school and middle school days, asking my grandmother for money to go to the mall and being so disappointed when she would be like, here's $10. And I'm like, what can I do with this? And she's like, well, you're not working, so you really can't, there's no negotiation that's supposed to be happening here. And going to Claire's back in the day when Claire's had enough products that you could purchase.
Listen, people don't know. I feel like we really didn't maximize Claire's the way we should have. I feel like we did, but not, we didn't.
Oh, exactly. And then in middle school at the time, what was really big, aging myself as a millennial, were those Black plastic bracelets, and they started to have weird meanings at a certain point. But so going to Claire's to buy those and going through my little emo phase, maybe getting a little spiked bracelet or something like that. So those are my earliest memories of, okay, money is not limitless and there's a way that I need to earn this.
Yeah, seriously. I like how you said not limitless because I do feel like, I feel like the past few times I've asked people that question, we've all centered back to that elementary, middle school, where it's just like somehow within that time frame, the lights came on. It was just like, oh no, you can't just get money and go do whatever you want to with it because it won't be replaced as easily as you think it will be. It
That
literally
part.
does not grow on trees. And I do think to some degree we did used to think that, right? Like going to the mall was just this experience for me. I feel like in my friends, it was going there to go to the food court. I don't know I mean, between that and yeah, definitely shopping. We were just
What were we doing?
yeah. What were
Getting
we
our steps
doing?
in,
Exactly,
being
like
out.
just being outside and spending money for no reason on like honey buns and stuff like that. But no, I like the fact that you said it's not like limitless. So, what do you feel now, especially as a business owner, that having that understanding of it not being limitless has benefited you as you've built your business?
I think it's benefited me, but it's also held me back in certain ways because I think I unfortunately have a bit of a scarcity mindset. I guess growing up, not necessarily having everything that I could have access to, or just realizing, like, hey, here is the threshold, and there are things that you're going to need to do to reach that threshold. And then once you reach it, like trying to hold on for dear life to make sure that I still have access to it. It's really interesting. I think those who have grown up um, not having a lot, you either can it's one of two ways primarily. It's that scarcity mindset, or it's that, hey, I finally have access to this. Nobody can tell me nothing. I don't care. I'll go to the grave with debt. Who cares about that? Debt's like a foreign concept. It's this made up philosophy anyway. We all have it. And I think I'm married to the person who's the opposite of that. So we balance each other out in that way. But so yeah, I think that's how it's kind of impacted me, where honestly, every penny that I've earned in my business, whether that's through sales revenue, whether that's through a grant, I never necessarily feel like it's mine. Like it took me so long to pay myself out in my business, feeling this guilt of like, hey, I just need to keep it there for a rainy day, or like I need to make sure that all these other business expenses are covered, not realizing that I'm a business expense as the person working on my business full time. So I think those are kind of the ways that it's influenced my relationship with money in my business.
Yeah, and that's a real thing too. It's like as we're building this business, we're always thinking about the business first, and it's a tough thing to really put ourselves, even though we're doing all the work and we're grinding and we're hustling and we're putting in the hours, and it's like, but I can't do that because it almost feels like a treat. It's like a very weird thing that goes on, with what you mentioned that I feel like we don't bring enough attention to is really making sure that in some ways we're always in that survival mode. It's just like, if I spend this, am I going to get money again by some like grant or investor? And it's always just like, I don't know. So let me be as, yeah, to your point, like either super frugal, or it's just like, I'm just going to, blow it out the water and then figure out the mistakes there, which isn't, always the best thing. But, there's also the growth, the ending growth mindset, which can end your company. So even within like that standpoint, what made you start to feel comfortable to look at yourself in that way and say, I also too deserve to pay myself or give myself something based on what we're building in order to take care of all the things you have to take care of?
Yeah, I think it was twofold. I think one part of it was having conversations with other entrepreneurs. I've participated in several accelerator programs where I would always broach the conversation and ask the question. And I think I needed to hear that reassurance several times from different stakeholders of like, yes, you should pay yourself. It is okay to pay yourself. It took me a few times. It wasn't like I heard it one time and then I was like, okay, owner's draw. It was like, I for some reason, it just took multiple people telling me the same thing for it to click. But then also, if I'm being honest, because I like that you're asking this question of like coming to the realization that I deserve this, and your earlier point about kind of feeling like it's a treat when it's actually something that you've worked for. I still am working on that, and I honestly feel like I didn't get to the point where it's like, "Okay, pay yourself," until there was a need where it was like, "Okay, I got a wedding coming up. Let me go ahead and pay myself," as opposed to just paying myself because this is my biweekly salary to myself, and I deserve it. It was less of, I feel like I deserve it, and it's like, "Look, I need it, and I've been talking about it, so I guess now's the time for me to test this thing out."
Yeah, it's definitely a real thing because even with me, I feel like I was in this space previously where I was just paying myself back. It was like, I'm not really getting anything from it. I'm just like, okay, well, I did this. Let me just equalize this for myself. And then that's it. And it's just like, what's the bare minimum, to that? And I feel like that feeling of, I don't know, it's almost weird because it's almost like a feeling of guilt, like I'm taking something away from the business, which is a weird thing. I feel like as a founder and an entrepreneur, the way we think about how we're running it, even if we're running somewhat successful companies and we're making money, there's still this point of, oh, I can't take away. So it's just that weird, like even mental shift that we all have to have that we just don't have open conversations and real conversations about.
Very true.
Yeah. So how do you feel like you've shifted there from your mindset around understanding what money can really do for your business, and what does that kind of mean to you now?
Mm, I think that's a good question. I think now how I'm shifting my mindset is, I think, not waiting for there to be such a dire need where I'm no longer able to enjoy the fruits of my labor. And honestly, just kind of coming up with a formula where it's like, hey, if my profits are X, here's how much I'm going to pay myself. Or even if my revenue is X before profit, like if I see myself as like a part of my business, and just like I pay the people that I work with and contract out and brand ambassadors, they're getting paid regularly for the work that they're doing. How can I kind of like build this in so I'm not thinking hard about it? I'm not holding it from myself like, oh, you just got to wait until you meet this goal, where it's kind of systematized. And yeah, I'm just doing it without second guessing it or thinking too deeply about it. Just like my company pays, my 9 to 5, they pay me on a regular basis. How can I just make it a regular practice, a habit, as opposed to this like big, overwhelming feat that I have to overcome? And then I overcome it, and it's like I'm treating myself. But to your point, also feeling like I'm just paying myself back for all the things that I had to dip into my personal to pay for in the business as well. So I think that is the mindset shift.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also like one of those things that sometimes takes us a minute to understand and to look at and say like, hey, I do this because yeah, to your point, it's like we're paying everyone else. We have a team, they're doing things, they're working, they're getting paid, and it's just like normal cadence for them without really seeing what is really behind the curtain and what's going on back there. And how was it, or how has it been as you've been continuing to build the business, bring on team members? How has that transition been for you as a business owner?
Yeah, the transition to bringing on team members was a little bit difficult because I think, as someone who's been kind of a one woman show, you hold on to so much. And then now you realize, to bring in support systems, you have to delegate. You have to find a way to leverage your institutional knowledge and convey it and impart that wisdom onto someone else. However, I've been very blessed in that the team members I've been able to hire on to support, the connections happened naturally. And they have been amazing. I have two brand ambassadors who I go to for sales and marketing support whenever we have in person vendor events, marketplaces, pop ups. They will represent Pull Up Card Game either solo or will partner if I need more hands on deck. And those relationships just kind of happened out of like a 2 degrees of association. Brianna is one person where I wasn't able to make it to an event, and I was introduced by one of her Howard alumni friends, and Brianna was actually volunteering at our table. She did an amazing job. So I just was like, hey, do you want to do this again? Sierra is another person where when I was laid off, I was doing a lot of gig work as far as like working for conferences and events when they need on-site support. Sierra and I were the only 2 people at this event at like a children's bookstore. She says like, hey, I want to be a game show host. You have a card game. I would love to like take your card game and capture content. It'll help me build my portfolio for my game show. I didn't think anything of it, but we ran into each other again at another conference. And then she was like, no, for real. So then I was like, okay, I brought the cards to her the next day. And now like she's all up in our videos. Like you'll see her all across TikTok and Instagram. And she's been consistent support. And so all of that being said, even though I was so nervous about like that initial hump that you have to get over of I have to figure out how to tell other people to do what I've been doing all my on my own. Once you finally cross that hump and you have trusted support systems and they do their job extremely well, then you're like, oh, I should have been doing this all along. I don't have to do this alone. And now
Listen,
I
let me
can
tell
focus
her.
on other parts of the business.
I know, it's almost just like, why didn't I do this sooner? That whole word delegate is just, it always just sounds so exhausting. Like now I have to go through my brain and figure out something for this person to do. Although I'll sit on the sidelines and complain about the things I have to do, right? It's like, why don't we just beat ourselves up as people, as business owners? But I love the fact, because I feel like the universe will always just put us in the positions and give us everything that we need when we need to. Like when you're running into her that second time and it's like, no, for real, I want to do this and can obviously do this well. And that has definitely served you. And I was having a recent conversation about even social capital and how social capital even equates to wealth and money, and that transition into a lot of our journeys. And I think you kind of touched on it without really saying social capital. So how do you feel like that social capital that you've been able to leverage have really expanded your business?
Yeah, I think social capital is everything. And for someone who can be extroverted, but like my comfort zone is living and being introverted, that it initially sounds like a lot and it's not comfortable necessarily. It sounds like work to build that social capital. But then I just realized that being in DC, being, a soror, things just happen naturally. And like building that social capital doesn't have to be as intense or even like you don't have to overthink it, because oftentimes that's when things come off as inauthentic. People are like, why are you trying to connect with me? What are you in it for? What do I have to give? What's the catch? And so I think that with that being said, like even the way that we connected, things just end up having a domino effect. And so all of that being said, social capital is extremely important. It opens up doors. But then also it's important to remember the importance of reciprocity. And sometimes it's okay to connect with someone, and there doesn't always have to be an exchange of sorts. How can I continue to impart wisdom? People reach out to me every month, like saying, hey, how did you start your card game? And I've had people say, oh, can I pay you for your time? And I'm like, no, no, let's just connect. Because I wish that I asked someone these questions early on in my journey. And I'm not going to ask you to pay for something. We all love talking about ourselves. So yeah, I'll sit and talk about what I did for an hour. Like it's the least that I can do.
Exactly. I feel like along all of our journeys, especially no matter what your journey is, right? There's been so many people along the way that have poured into you, and you could always tell those types of people who are just those connectors and those collaborators who just want to open up space for others. We all understand that not everyone plays in the same playground when it comes to that. But I feel like when you find those genuine connections, they are so natural and that pull is so easy, because those are the people who also just continuously pour and pour and pour. And to your point, like, yeah, sometimes when you meet people, it's not initially when you connect, because it's like I'll meet a lot of people and I'm like, I know there's a reason or something there, but it's like I can't figure it out yet. And then it's just like some random something happens and you're just like, oh my God, that is exactly why I've met you. And sometimes it's not even about me, but it's about someone else I've met who said something and I'm like, God, I know the perfect person to connect you with. And I think that's just like that beauty about that social capital and how at some point down the road in some way it will always come back tenfold when you're not even like paying attention. You just get a text and it's just like, hey, can you do this? And oh, this is tied to it too from a revenue perspective. You're just like, what? Like how did you even remember? But I feel like good people just attract that good. So yeah, let's definitely dive in more to your company and why you started it, because I love the whole premise behind it, and especially the new version that you just put out, especially with everything that is going on in this wand of a every time I get here to talk about this, I was like, I never know what word to put on it. It's just I just go silent because I'm just like, I don't know what's happening in the universe. But yeah, how how did that transition really happen to ensure that there was a space, especially for those at work?
So when we initially launched in 2020, PO-up card game, the college edition was just a concept that I came up with just organically on accident. I just made an icebreaker with some friends about our college days at UGA. And what was going to be a 15-minute conversation ended up being hours of like nostalgia filled conversations reminiscing about our college days. So I always say the college edition is very like a selfish concept that ended up being a decent business idea, but I didn't come up with it saying like, okay, what does a certain target audience want? I just said, what do I want? And there are people that are within my demographic who may like it or not. And it just worked out. However, when I was pitching my product, I kept getting feedback about like ways to expand, because I know that, one way to increase revenue is to increase SKUs. And for the card game world, that's just as simple as coming up with new editions. But people kept pressing me about coming up with a family edition of PO-up card game college edition. Like, hey, can you make a family edition for me to, teach my younger ones about college and prepare them for college readiness? And it sounded like a good idea. However, I was like, okay, let me make sure this decision is actually grounded in data and not all of these people who are not really familiar with my business giving me random feedback after hearing me do like a 2-minute pitch. So I went ahead and I surveyed my audience and I gave them a few different options, including the family edition for, what do they want to see next in our second edition of PO-up card game. So it was like, family edition, Black at a PWI, diaspora, first gen, Black in the workplace, etc. And so when I got the results back, people actually didn't really care about the family edition. They were like, I like the game being an adult game, PO-up, we get that part. So they voted for the Black in the Workplace edition. And so I said, okay, this will be my first edition where it's not just because I want to do a Black in the Workplace edition. My audience of people who follow me and support me, they said this is what they want. So let me go ahead and give them what they want. And then it just took off from there.
Yeah, I think that's an important part too, especially when we're looking at adding to our businesses, especially from just like a revenue perspective. Like everything takes time, right? You don't just wake up and go, okay, someone said this, so let me just go create this and then I can go sell it in the next hour, right? It takes time to kind of understand, like, does this make sense? Even if you're at a point where you're pivoting your business, like all of that takes time and sometimes strategy behind it too. So it's important that you did go back and look at, okay, yeah, someone suggested it. Maybe 2 or 3 people said they would like it, but 2 or 3 people aren't really going to keep the lights on and keep it moving.
Very true.
And understanding that, hey, like, let's see what the data said, test it out in the market, because that can also, cost you money and time kind of equates to money too. So really doubling down on that part. So once you really just kind of double down on that data, what was next from there? Like, how did that shape from that revenue perspective for the company?
Yeah. And so before I answer that question, I also just wanted to mention that Being a business owner, there's so much unsolicited feedback that you receive.
Oh my
But
goodness. I should just get a t-shirt. I feel like we should all get shirts with like all the things everyone has told us what to do with our companies. And not that we're not coachable. But
yeah,
it's like,
but
eh,
I wish people would be more mindful of their power when they're giving feedback, because you have some people where feedback will roll off of their backs, and then you have other people who take feedback super personally and feel like they have to jump into action right away. And I and because I'm kind of a little bit stubborn, like some of the feedback that I've gotten, like I've gotten feedback about, oh, let's make this card game for all people, not just Black people. I'm like, no. Or, oh, does it have to be up? No. But actually, that was the one that got me. I got an email from someone who was like, hey, I love the concept for your game, but the fact that it's named Up, I would never support something that of that name. And I don't know what it was, but that day I just like started to spiral, and I was actually in the process of designing the Black in the Workplace edition with our graphic designer. And I'm so grateful that I chose this specific graphic designer. He's familiar with the card game industry. He does really, really great work, and really believed in my brand. So I was like, hey, I think we should like take a step back. And actually, this was when we were redesigning the college edition. I was like, hey, I'm thinking of changing the name of the game from Up to like Proud Black Grad, because like I was like, hey, look at this email that I just got. And he was like, no, like you have so much brand authority over Up. This is gonna allow you to expand. Like, imagine if I stuck with Proud Black Grad, but then people want a Black in the Workplace edition. What would that look like? He was like, it's unique. It's a purple cow. You know, people are like, wait, Up, what is that about? It's fun, it's edgy. And he was like, I don't think you should go ahead and do this complete rebrand off of one person who sent you a weird email. But I was ready to do that. So that is just a long way of saying, like, y'all, be mindful of your feedback and the way that it will land with people. I understand the intent is one thing, but especially if you don't really know what you're talking about, sometimes it's okay to be like, you know what? This is an interesting concept. Honestly, I don't have enough proximity to your target audience or, you know, the product to give you thoughtful feedback. So I don't even want to say anything that's going to make you move in a certain way without it being like truly thought through strategic advice. So that was just kind of a one off there.
yeah. And it's such like a thoughtful way to respond because to your point, it's just like you don't need like people just feel like they need to say things, right? They're just out here saying stuff. Some things make sense and then and then some things don't. But it's just like you don't have to have a response for every single thing. Like it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say exactly what you just said, or it's like, or, let me take the time to really process and think about it and try to understand a little bit better and maybe get back to you with some thoughtful, feedback or response in some way, or just decide to say nothing, right? Going back to just the say nothing thing is quite okay too, because to your point, it's like there are different people where, and even for us who are strong and grounded in what we're doing and really understand, the product market fit or where we're trying to go and are still coachable, but we just might have a day like you just had, right? Like you just had a day where you just had a moment and you saw this email and it's just like in that moment, for whatever reason, it triggered it. It also made sense to maybe consider it. And it's like, imagine if you didn't have this person there to say, stop, don't do that, pouring back into you so you don't take because you were starting to take the time and the energy to pour it, which is time that you were going to start taking away from just pushing this out there, right? But not a lot of us, start to stand or have people around us who could just gather us in that way.
Very true. So
Yeah.
true. Back to that social capital piece, back to that, like the importance of the people that you bring around you as well.
Yeah, those people matter. Like, and it's funny too because it wasn't an internal person; it was an external person to
Mhm.
your team, and it's like even those individuals also can see us as well and are there to even provide that feedback or that support at the right time, like in all the right ways that we need it. Some days. So as you continue to build out the company and of course you still have your 9 to 5 that you're working, how do you define what your overall wealth strategy is for yourself as you look at, what you're building during the day, and then also, what you're building externally from that.
And to confirm, are you asking what my overall wealth strategy is?
Yeah. How do you think about wealth in this moment? Like, what does that even mean to you?
Whew. Well, I think how I think about wealth has really been impacted by the fact that I think I was on this trajectory when it came to my 9 to 5 of like every year, every move that I was making was like vertical in terms of like, okay, I'm going on to the next. This is a promotion. This is a higher salary. This is this and that. And then I think I really felt like a, a bruised ego that I didn't really realize I had around wealth or around careers, etc. When I was laid off from my job, I was in big tech, but I was still doing DEI work when the big tech companies wanted to commit to it. And I was like, wow, I really made it. I never thought that I could have access to a company like this. And it wasn't even on my list. It was just like, but I'm here. So being laid off from that company, but then not only that, deciding to make a pivot into full-time entrepreneurship and consulting, it was so difficult for me to like come to terms with the fact that like, hey, you're self-employed, like this is just a different way of building wealth. But I started to realize like my identity was tied into the security of having a certain job with a certain company and a certain title, versus as an entrepreneur, you don't just say you're an entrepreneur, you explain what you're doing, and then just feeling like people are wondering, well, like um how successful is your company? Like, is it really producing revenue and things of that nature? So now I came to a point where I was like, okay, full time entrepreneurship is fantastic in so many ways. However, where I was at that time, planning a wedding, things of that nature, I said, hey, I do actually, at this point in my life, need the security of a 9 to 5, a consistent income, full time benefits. I had injured myself while I was laid off, and then just like, wow, okay, health insurance, all these things,
Oh
like
yeah, life gets real.
life gets real. And so, with all of that being said, right now, juggling the two after experiencing that, I think that it influences the way that I look at wealth, because I still aspire to make more. And I'm still trying to recognize that where I am, like, my family, it's a lot of firsts that I've been able to enjoy. And I don't want to appear as if I'm ungrateful for that. Um, but I don't know, like, I don't even know how I wanna answer this specifically. I just think that now I'm a little bit less like pie in the sky, like, "Hey, sky's the limit," and I'm like, "Oh, no, life happens, and your trajectory may not just be up, up, up. There's gonna be some ups and downs," and I was not used to experiencing that. So, like, I still have my goals for myself. They just kind of feel a little bit lofty as opposed to before, where they felt more realistic. And it's just a lot of work balancing the 9 to 5, balancing the business. There are days and months where, nothing is coming through and you're grateful for the 9 to 5 to fall back on. But just, starting to think about what will it look like when this business truly runs on its own and I have passive income from it, to the point where I can maybe even consider scaling back from my 9 to 5 again if I choose to do so. So yeah, that's a long way of really not answering the question, because I feel like it just put me in this meta place of like, dang, how do I feel about wealth right now?
No, but I feel like that's super real. Because I do think it goes, it ebbs and flows in different stages of our lives. Like at some points, it means it's tied to a specific thing, right? It's tied to our income. It's tied to how much we have in the bank. It's tied to like what our, whatever assets are doing, whatever they're doing in particular market situations. But then I feel like when we're sometimes pulled out of that and we get to see the world and ourselves from different vantage points, like you got to see who you were in that role at that particular time, and then you got to see who you were or who you are as a founder and entrepreneur, and now you kind of have the benefit of where you are now being even more, I feel like, in control from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, because now you can, like, I know what it looks like to be fully in. I know what it looks like to just be all, all into work, even if you were still pursuing the business at the same time. And now you're at a point where it seems like it's more kind of look back and understanding from both vantage points and being able to pull that meaning out and stretch it a lot more, where it's a bigger, wider view, where you're talking about passive income from the company that you're continuing to build, and now that's a part of your wealth strategy, as before you weren't really looking at the business in that light.
Yes, absolutely. I think you put it together so well. In a way where it's like I didn't even realize, like, yes, that is what I'm saying. Where before, my wealth strategy was over indexing on the 9 to 5 and having the business as a side hustle. Whereas now it's like, no, I know what I need to do for right now based on where I am as far as having this 9 to 5. But the goal is a little bit more lofty. And how can I grow this business to not just be a side business that I'm comfortable always working at the same time as a 9 to 5,
Mhm.
but how can I get this business to scale in a way where it takes off, becomes the passive income, and then I have the power to determine what I want to do from there.
Yeah. Because I feel like all of those words are super powerful when we're talking about like taking that power back, because your mindset shifts, right? It's like we start thinking about the business as a true business, as a scalable place that can continue to grow. Because now we're like, oh, this is a real thing. And not that it wasn't real before, but our mindset to what we felt about the business and it's almost like our limiting beliefs on where it would grow, because it's like in our head and our hearts we want it and we know it can get to X, but in reality we're like, but I don't know if it's really going to do that. But then when you
Mhm.
step back and you're like, oh shit, I really can do this thing, and now I have the tools, the language, the goals, the revenue, I'm looking at it different, and now it becomes this more expansive strategy within our minds where we didn't even conceptualize that before. Which is an amazing thing to kind of get to that point and start to think about it. So if you could, wave your magic wand for where you feel like your company will be in the next 3 years, what does that look like?
Ooh, waving my magic wand of where the company will be. Um, I would love for the company to be in a place where 3 years, let me think. I would love the company to be in the place where I am like easily paying myself consistently, and it doesn't feel like I'm just paying myself back. It feels like, hey, this is the money that I've earned. Um, this is the money that I've worked for, and I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. I think that's the big picture answer to where I want to be in 3 years with my business. I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor, whatever that may look like. I can manifest in the season that it's like, hey, I've found my groove. We're able to, invest in more editions of the card game because the product is selling itself essentially, and we're getting to this place where we're able to have full-time people on our team, not just contractors. And I don't have to be in all places at one time because we have that team that we need, and the resources where it's like, hey, I can't go to Afrotech because I'm going to be out of town, but we have the resources to fly our materials and people out to handle it for us, and things of that nature, and doing it consistently, not just in ebbs and flows. And so I'm super excited for what the future may hold. And I also want to take a time to pause and reflect on, hey, this is our 5th year of business, and that is something to celebrate as well.
Absolutely. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Because I don't feel like we take enough time. And I just talked about this the other day where, yeah, we don't take enough time to like celebrate those wins. We're always just like head down. Okay, this happened. Great. Move on to the next thing. I got to call in 5 minutes. Uh, but no, that's an amazing thing. And congratulations. And
Thank
what do you see from people who are using the game, right? Because I feel like with the version for the workplace you just released, and you all are continuing to grow and scale. I feel like in this moment, especially as Black women in certain spaces, I mean, that article and the stats and the numbers just came out today as we're talking, which is in May. Because it's episode will come out a little later and people might not have heard all of this, or they might still be talking about this, where we're losing our jobs or getting laid off at a rapid rate. Although, you know, we won't talk about the fact that we do all the work and all the things, and, you know, no need to dive all the way into that because we know. But it is happening. So do you feel like even within this space, like your game is also providing some sort of like therapy and connection for Black women as they navigate these spaces, as we really start to hone in on going back to really community and what that means?
Yes, in a very weird way. Like even on the back of the box when we describe the game to folks, we were like laugh or cry, you know, as you bond over these shared work experiences. And as we kind of presented the game in different spaces for people to test out for the first time, we were garnering pre-orders for people who were interested without saying much, with just saying like, hey, we have POUP, we have a college edition, and we have a Black in the Workplace edition. Oh, Black in the Workplace edition, I need that. There's something, once again, about these shared Black experiences in these very specific spaces where it's like immediately we know what's going on. So much so where like the college edition, it was easy to come up with like lighthearted questions where you're like reminiscent, like we could laugh about ramen noodles and like twin XL beds and throwing up and stuff like that. But the workplace edition, it was interesting as I was coming up with the questions because I was like, some of these are a little deep, but it just speaks to the experiences of Black people in the workplace. Like, not everything is lighthearted, but you know, misery loves company, so it feels better to realize that you're not alone in this, or to hear how other people are navigating the workspace. So I'm excited to see more people interact with the game, but so far it's been really interesting hearing different perspectives across generations about how people approach work and their relationship with work and their relationship with managers. And so it's just a social experiment in itself. So I have this feeling where it's like, okay, this time and place, it's just a really timely product, especially to your point about that article coming out about people being laid off and Black women specifically being impacted, which, like you said, we knew. I'm waiting for information to come out to show how they knew that Black people and Black women would be impacted at a higher rate by these layoffs. But you know, that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, it's timely and it's filling a gap in a different way, which I love. Like it happened on accident, but my card game is not just about like drinking and you know, pulling up. Like there's a deeper need that's being filled, and there's a problem that's being solved in just a very innovative. I want to say it's innovative, but it's not. Like for centuries, Black people have always centered joy to kind of address the symptoms of the society and everything that we're experiencing. And my card game is just another way of doing that in a different way.
Yeah, it's definitely that place of connection for us, because it's always I always think about, or I'm just thinking about now, even with Black Twitter, right? When Black Twitter got really popular in that moment when we realized that we were all like we all grew up in the same house, right? Like is that experience
Exactly.
where you had that same candy dish, you had that same sofa or that same room, you were not allowed to go in, and if you went in, you had to take off basically everything to sit down, and don't you dare touch anything, you just sit still and you don't move. And if you need the remote, you ask. It was like we all had these like amazing, interesting experiences without knowing each other, and even intergenerational. So I love the fact that you even, you know, brought that into the conversation around how even between all of our generations, there's this shared connection. And it's almost an unfortunate thing that like things haven't changed much, but even within that, that has still pulled us together to have these experiences where we can still remember that no matter where you are in age, you have not aged out the ability to connect with someone who might be 20, 30 years, even if that is the point of connection, and them also knowing that they don't have to be alone. As you know, younger individuals, I feel like coming into this workspace, which is new and different, and they're just like the generations are just different, but you still have you still have those connecting points. Do you feel like there's a lot of just that shared experience between that intergenerational connection in those who use the game?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can imagine that's even interesting, even as it's being played. Like, for what
Yeah,
did
we
you
even
say?
have a question like, would you rather have the work ethic of Gen Z, a millennial, or a baby boomer? And of course, we all give our
That's a
biased
whole
take.
argument.
We all have a biased take, but
It's like somebody's getting fired from that conversation.
baby boomers are always, we go in on them like, how did y'all live life like this? Like, stand up. But, they had to navigate the way they needed to. And now they're learning from the way that Gen Z is navigating things, so we can
Yeah,
all learn from each other.
absolutely. And I feel like as millennials, we just sit in the middle. We're just like, just looking back and forth, like, y'all are just a mess. Like, we have this benefit of understanding like baby boomers, but then also having a heart towards the Gen Zers, although we're still kind of like, y'all are really, y'all just be outside. And we just go put our hands in prayer over a lot of things. But I do feel like there's this beautiful dynamic that's happened, even as it relates to us connecting and building a community in fostering those collaborative spaces. So before we hop off, I definitely want to know, like, in this moment and continuing on, like, what brings you financial joy, or what do you feel like that means to you when you hear that?
Hmm. I love it being framed as financial joy. I'm used to hearing financial freedom. What brings
Like,
me
anytime like we think about
yeah.
finance, it's never associated with joy. There's always some like, you know, either we need to be free from something or there's some trauma related to it. And I feel like as we start to even have conversations like this, or just create, you know, be in more spaces where we are the wealth providers, you know, there's more joy associated within the words that people want to kind of keep attaching to us.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I love that framing, and I think financial joy to me looks like a few things. One, taking care of my debts, getting that to 0. 2, being able to have a steady income in such a way that I kind of compare it to, for example, taking out the trash. Like, I don't take out the trash anymore. My husband does that so much so that I don't even know, like, I have to follow up if he's gone for a little while. Like, what day does the trash come? Like, what day is recycling? I have to follow up with him. I want my money to feel like that, where it's like, what day do I get paid again? Because the money is just flowing so effortlessly in, and my debts are taken care of, my bills are taken care of, where I'm not sitting and knowing, oh, the first and the 15th, the first and the 15th. So I think that's also a part of it. And then getting to the point where now I've taken care of my needs, and I happily, not with a heavy heart, but I'm happily able to impart that same financial joy onto others around me and my loved ones, without having to second guess it, because I got it, and I'm more than happy to support them as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love the reference to the first and the 15th because I feel like we associate those dates with money, period. Like, if someone says, it's kind of like when you talk about the fourth, right? You associate it, or in our communities, we associate it with food and barbecue. And that's how we think about the fourth.
Mhm.
And it's like the first and the 15th is just like, those are stressors, those are triggers, that's money. Something's due on that day in that way. And we definitely don't talk about numbers associated with that. So that's a whole another episode we're gonna have to talk about and come back to. But no, I love all of it. Just that embracing that joy in that way and really being able to redefine these words for ourselves. So last thing, I know I said the last question was the last question, but it never is. I always lie. If you're listening and you know the podcast, I always have like 2, 3 more questions. But no, last one, like, what would you say in this moment to other founders, specifically Black women who are navigating like this space in this time, you know, founder to founder, what would you say to them?
Founder to founder, be kind to yourself. I think sometimes we are our harshest critics. Remember that comparison is the thief of joy, and not all that glitters is gold. Sometimes slow and steady does truly win the race. And while you may be frustrated that, your videos aren't going viral, your sales aren't where you want them to be, just actually take a moment to think about, okay, because I'm taking the slow and steady path, I'm able to fail forward and not have to fail in front of everybody and make mass apologies because I messed up. I'm able to pivot and, I have this flexibility. Think about the pros in that area. And then also dream big. Like, don't limit yourself because of what you think you only have the capacity to do or because of what you've only been able to do in the past. Like, if I were to go back in 2020 when I launched this game and think about what my goals were for the business, a lot of the things that I've achieved, I don't think I would have thought it was possible. Um, and unfortunately, sometimes the only way we start to realize this is with wisdom and time. So if you could really channel that confidence early on and let that fuel your ambitions, fuel your next moves rather than moving based on like, oh, I can only do so much. Like, I feel like the world is truly our oyster. So that is what I would impart onto a fellow founder. And I'm honestly like trying to talk to a mirror to remind myself of these same tips and pieces of advice as well for myself.
Listen, you talking to me too. I'm like, I'm soaking all of that in because we definitely just need those reminders of just hang in there, right? Just show up every day. Well, Liz, I am so happy you came on and blessed the podcast. I'm sure I'm going to have you back for more conversations. I feel like there's so much more to touch on and unpack. And again, congratulations on year 5 and the continuing years that you'll have within the business and just within life in general as you continue to manifest all the things that we talked about tonight. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone listening, I hope you got a lot from this episode. I feel like there were a lot of gems dropped. So again, just, stay focused, stay the course, one foot in front of the other and all the things. And thanks again for listening, and be sure to check out other episodes of the Equity Blueprint podcast, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you share and subscribe. Tell a friend to check it out as well. See you again soon.